Headmaster, Reverend Robinson, teachers, boys, fellow old boys of the 80s. This morning I'm going to talk about freedom and responsibility. I would like you to, throughout the speech, have a reflection of what the headmaster just said. Throwing chicken bones, throwing rubbish, it's part of your exercising and probably abusing your own freedom. And you actually have responsibility. You should bear your responsibility and the consequences of exercising such freedom. Okay, what is freedom? You can have freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of choice, sexual freedom, etc. Is having the luxury of doing whatever you please is freedom? You can go to a movie now showing if you want, but you cannot go at any time you want because they have schedules. You cannot shout and scream and talk on the phone in the movie without bearing the likely consequence of being asked to leave. There are things you want to do, and the school or your parents wouldn't allow. Does that mean that you have no freedom? Let's say you have raised a young pet bird in a cage. It can fly around inside a cage and is regularly fed. The bird is loved and protected by you. The bird grew older and wanted to be free. You allowed it to go. Does that mean the bird is now free? It is now free from you and the cage, perhaps, but it is now the captive of the laws of nature. It suddenly has a lot of responsibilities, and it did not learn how to cope with survival while living in a cage. What responsibilities, you may ask? It is now responsible for its own well-being. It has to find food. It has to avoid being preyed on. It has to survive. Freedom comes with responsibility, even if we are not birds. We live in a world of relationships with our parents, siblings, friends, girlfriends, partners, teachers, schoolmates, and many others. Our actions will affect others. Rules, regulations, laws outline our most fundamental responsibilities and the basic generally accepted behavior of a person. I find them very easy to abide by, well, at least now, not when I was younger. When I was a primary 2 student, the main school building was a 4-story building with stairs on both sides. So you can imagine that we can run up and down the stairs and across the corridors. A perfect site for hide and seek and gunfight. Well, when I was in primary 2, the school made it specifically forbidden to run around the corridors during recess and lunchtime. I was having fun with my friends and we forgot such a rule. We were playing hide and seek, on the stairs, and luckily we were caught. And our consequences were that we were caned by the headmistress then. Yeah, we had a bit of fun while playing around, but it was not fun. Being whacked at bare buttocks with a stick. I thought at the time, what harm could it do? Right, exercising and running a bit around the corridors, and we were just having fun. People can run in the school field. Obviously, you all know that it's wrong running around the corridors. It is dangerous. You can hurt yourself, and you can also hurt your fellow students. If you do not understand such, you probably should go back to primary 2 now and study. You tend to possess a better judgment when you grow older. You tend to know what is right and wrong, and you also tend to know the risks involved. However, it is dangerous to believe that you know all, that you already know what is best for you. You don't, just not yet. The school is a place for the transmission of knowledge, the pursuit of truth, and the development of students with basic moral values and discipline. The school is a place to teach you how to make sound judgments, not to abuse freedom, and learn to accept responsibilities, especially our school. You may just about get the hang of it when you leave DBS, but not now. However, I didn't get to learn such things during my initial years at DBS, and I was caned again. A teacher was about to step into the classroom, and one of my classmates cried out, "Here comes Sissy!" 哪用嚟啦? Sissy was a teacher's nickname at that time. Well, none of us reported the offender, although we know who said that. as we have great allegiance, loyalty, and as a result, the whole class got caned. It would be considered spineless and gutless if we had reported the offender. Now, you could have your own opinion about whether we were courageous or stupid, but that concept was deeply rooted in us, thanks to DBS education. But was the offender wise? He could have stayed quiet, but he unleashed his tongue and got us all caned. What did he gain? Respect from us? Admiration? Well, he probably could have gained some respect from us if he had confessed and borne all the caning by himself. But no, he gained nothing but cold shoulders from us. But in any event, that boy, I hope that because of learning from the experience, he later became a head prefect. We, because of our silence, we also paid for our choice of silence. We got caned. So that is the consequences of exercising freedom, and there are responsibilities to bear. Yet another time, another one cried out the nickname of the reverend of my time when he came to the classroom. Another super act by him. He called it Batman, painful pup. Well, we didn't even have the time to turn over him because we became wiser. We know that we had to turn the offender or else we probably would get caned. The reverend did not allow us any time to turn over the offender. Instead, he immediately engaged into a lot of haranguing of us with insult. He said, "You bunch of SOBs, don't think that you are so smart and know it all," and blah, 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 and he went on. Obviously, we felt that it was injustice to call us to brand us SOB, but what can we do? Well, he was a reverend. We didn't, was it wise to say a teacher's nickname in his presence? What was that to gain? Obviously, we always have the urge to do something. But you have to really consider the consequence. You have to consider what you are responsible for. We should express that respect in front of our teachers. We should not make fun of them, even if they are not good at certain languages, even if their English is not good or they make grammatical mistakes. They are trying their best to educate you, to make you into a responsible person and reliable person. Alright. There was a nice example of my class abusing freedom granted to us. I hope that the headmaster is not regretting having me standing here and talk about our rebellious past. Though it may seem to you that we were a reckless group, but in fact we were pretty well behaved. We were in Form 2A at that time, and the class teacher was a new English teacher. He was called Mr. Long. He encouraged free discussion, inquiry, and expression. He even invited us to his apartment during the weekends. He shared an apartment with another new math teacher, Mr. Kwok. Mr. Long organized dramas, debates, and it was fun attending his classes. Then, as you would expect, we got out of line. We began to be very noisy in class, and discipline slowly disintegrated. The discussions drifted to inconsequential topics, and there were periodic outbursts of dirty jokes. Though it was a good laugh, class order was disrupted. The final nail in the coffin was the time when we had blackboard brush fight, 粉擦大戰 in the class. At that time, we would have blackboards, and then you write with chalks, and at the end of the lesson, you have to brush it with dusters. So the dusters are filled with chalk. And we typically have 3 or 4 dusters. And between the change of lessons, before before the teacher comes in, sometimes we play 粉擦大戰. So have boys standing at each end of the classroom and throwing it at each other. And make a nasty chalk mark if you get hit. But anyway, we made so much noise that time that it did not just attract Mr. Kwok and his class to come over to watch. It also brought the attention of the deputy headmaster. After that incident, Mr. Long referred back to the more orthodox method of teaching and became very strict. Did we learn anything from that? Well, no, we just thought that Mr. Long was going to become boring. Now we understood that we were victims of our own doing. You actually do have a lot of freedom by abiding by school rules and regulations. You just have to be wise, not to violate the rules. When I entered university, I was given so much freedom to decide how much studying I wanted to do, that I spent most of the time fiddling around, not studying. Well, I tried to go to lectures in the first couple of weeks, and then my taste for leisure took over. I started playing more sports, hanging out with friends, playing mahjong at night. I didn't manage to get lower second class honor, but I could have attained at least an upper class honor if I had attended lectures more often. Although I still managed to get a respectable job, I considered it was due to pure luck. Luck is not always there when you needed it. You can use up your luck, so don't depend on your luck to get you through times of trouble. I regret it till today that I had wasted my parents' money, did not live up to their expectations, and did not fulfill my responsibilities. I could have learned so much more. A friend of mine was a manager in a major international accounting firm. He was bright and executed all the assignments given to him to perfection. He was a rising star in the firm. He was then recruited by a global conglomerate to be the chief financial officer of one of the Southeast Asian business divisions. His annual income tripled in an instant. The CEO traveled a lot and gave my friend a lot of autonomy. The only guiding principle was to have the CEO grow the business. He suddenly had a lot of freedom, and he started to spend more time playing golf and enjoy life. Well, it would be unfair to say that he did not attend to his job. He did, but instead of going out looking for more business, bringing in income, he just followed the instructions and executed what new business is brought in by the CEO and the business team. Well, obviously, there is no free lunch. He got fired after a year. My friend did not change to adapt to a new situation. We gave him more freedom and responsibilities. When you started growing, you will have more freedom, and you will have to change to adapt to that freedom, because together with it, there comes a lot of responsibilities. Well, my friend learned from the experience. He went back to the accounting firm, worked even harder, brought in business and became a partner. And his golf handicap is now improved about around 80. As I said, the more senior you become, the more responsibility you have, the more autonomy and authority. More autonomy does not mean that you have more freedom. You have more responsibilities. You have responsibilities to prioritize your time. You have responsibility to set an example for your colleagues. Like recently, in the economic turmoil, I have to think about my traveling plans, my traveling policy. I used to be able to fly business class. Well, have good food, you can have a rest in the lounge before going in. But now, should I fly business class anymore? Probably not. I would have to set an example. Well, I have the choice to choose. My family say that I have to fly business on economy, but I chose to fly economy, to sacrifice some leisure, to set an example. That is my responsibility. Your head prefect, your head of house, your team captains, your orchestra and choir leaders, they have been granted some authority and autonomy, but at the same time, they shoulder a lot of responsibilities. How one chooses to assume the responsibilities is the real test. Will one die if he declines that responsibility? Well, obviously he will die. But then he will be accountable to himself, as well as others who have placed trust and faith in him. I am not here to turn you on into student role models. Believe it or not, we were once teenagers, and we understood how frivolous and eager a teenager wants to stand out, to be perceived to have character. Our routines need their independence. You need to learn to make some of your decisions and life choices. You need the chance to practice good decision skills and to manage new life experiences. You should be given an appropriate amount of freedom and independence. However, you have to understand that you are inexperienced. Parents and teachers are here to guide you. You will make mistakes and missteps, but it doesn't matter if you assume the responsibilities. We will have much more confidence in you and give you more freedom, you will show responsibility and reliability. Will you ask your thief to guide your safe for you? Obviously not. But if the person repeatedly shows that he can live up to your expectation, he can shoulder the responsibility, he's accountable, we will give him more freedom. You create your identity and character. You earn respect, you earn admiration for being responsible and reliable. Do you always need to be rebellious to feel your own presence? No, we don't. Being responsible and reliable does not mean you have to be rigid. I do not believe it is necessarily the right thing to be too rigid with blind allegiance to certain principles. In the real world, there is not only a black and white. There is not only a right and wrong. Each situation is different. There are no one correct answer to a lot of questions in the real world. You just have to make a judgment based on your own experience. You have to listen to others. You have to accommodate. You have to improvise. That way, you probably won't get wrong. A real man, he rises up to the challenge and accepts responsibilities. DBS has a lot of good sportsmen and musicians. They may have raw talent, but they also need to practice hard to reach their potential, or even better, to improve. These sportsmen and musicians, they have to be disciplined, to keep to a rigid, stringent training schedule, and that requires a lot of willpower and sense of responsibility. Well, you may be a star athlete of your team, but that status does not accept you fulfilling your responsibilities. If you shy away from your responsibilities, you slacken your discipline, you slacken your control, you will become a loser. Maybe not immediately, but you will become a loser in life unless you change your attitude. Accepting that freedom comes with responsibility requires a lot of self-awareness and character. It is common for people to seek freedom while trying to avoid responsibility. Who wants to better hard work? Who wants to better hard work where we can just get by? No one does. But life is not that simple. While at times it may appear that people can get away, a psychological consequence may remain. The consequence is often not noticeable, but may find expression through guilt, anxiety, depression, or even anger. A bully may get scared in school. He thinks that he gets respect, but he does not. When he goes home, when he reflects on the day at school, he probably cannot find a lot of real friends who will stand up by him during times of trouble. That's because he exercises freedom, but he does not exercise responsibility. He cannot be accountable. He is not reliable. Will you choose a person who is not responsible and unreliable as a friend? I hope you don't. Accepting responsibilities is not as difficult as you have thought if you have high moral values and good discipline. Once you are accustomed to accepting responsibilities, you will automatically know the correct and appropriate behavior response, and you will not feel anxious and insecure. That is how you have your freedom. It is a dream thinking of you will suddenly sprout a halo and leave this whole being all responsible and disciplined. I just hope that you can stop and ponder about the consequences and the responsibility before you exercise your next act of abusing your freedom. And I hope that you will not throw chicken bones and rubbish to the counter or the touch shop anymore.